Right, now let's go on and look at the last part, which is the appropriation account. Now the word appropriate means to divide. But before we do that, let's just go back. Remember that in this business, the owners, the shareholders, have put in share capital. They are putting in that share capital because they want to make a return. They want to get money back. And that money comes from the business making a profit. Out of that net profit, income tax has to be paid. That is compulsory, it's mandatory, there is no excuse for that. So out of that profit, the income tax gets paid. Once the income tax has been paid though, the balance belongs to the shareholders. And that will either be paid out in the form of dividends to them, or it will be retained. Or it could be a combination of that. So, for example now, let's say that we have got a net profit here of 240,000 Rand. The first thing out of that is, let's say that we pay our income tax, and for argument's sake, let's say it's 40,000. That leaves us here with an amount of 200,000. And that belongs to the shareholders. But they might not pay it all out immediately. Maybe they want to keep capital in the business. So they decide to hold some back, retain. The word retain means to keep back. So the shareholders will receive a part of it as dividends, or maybe none of it. And remember in the previous one we spoke about the fact that the directors will declare these dividends, and it's subject to the shareholders approving. So maybe they pay out 80,000 in dividends. Now that is coming out of this 200,000. The balance then, the other 120,000, goes into retained income. And that is what the appropriation account is there for. It's where we appropriate, where we divide. We take our net profit, we show what we are doing with it. How much is income tax, how much is dividend, and how much we are retaining. Right, so if we have a look at the exercise, remember, we were told that the net profit before tax, and that's what we want, was 365,400. And that is the amount we are now going to appropriate. Now that would have been calculated in your profit and loss account, which then is brought into the appropriation account. And that goes onto the credit side because it's an income. Now, out of that, we have to pay, we have to allocate to the three things. And so, looking back, remember, the first thing we said is, based on that profit, we'd worked out our income tax. So that's the first thing that has to come out of this. So you're going to close this off to the appropriation account on the 31st of October. And this will all be a general journal because you're closing off 120,800, and that's closed off. And so double entry, you've credited that. You will bring in the first of the allocations, which was your income tax, from the general journal of 120,800. Now, secondly, we had dividends, and remember in this one over here we had now 115,000 Rand dividend, the interim plus the final. And as I said to you before, even though the interim was paid during the year, it still has to come out of the profits. And so it's the total that must come out. It's all the dividends, and that will come in also on the minus side. It's coming out of the profits. So out of the 365, you have appropriated, remember going back, the income tax and the dividends. And so there's the amount, income tax and dividends. And whatever's left over here, and if we balance this out, there's an amount of 129,600. We only had 365,400. And so we've got to appropriate the full amount. We've got to divide it all. So we have to allocate all of it. And that is going back to your retained income. And what that means is in this business, they are retaining some of their profit, which will carry them on into next year. Now, it is possible that they might pay out tax and dividends of more profit than they've got, but in that case they would have had to have retained income, and so they would be subsidizing and by bringing in here some of the retained income. So now, please learners, you need to get sorted out with all of these ledger accounts. As I said to you at the beginning, you're unlikely in the matric exam to ask a whole exercise on ledger, but you must expect to get some ledger, and you need to focus on understand these ledgers. So keep practicing them as you move through all your questions. Good luck.